Easy way. You got keywords. 3 words. You'll remember it. R word means that more than one redundancy of innervation. So if you even lose one neuron, you still got another neuron making part of that muscle fire off. How many? Redundancy of innervation. At your advantage of a nerve plexus. What are the 4 nerve plexuses?
The one right there.
Cervical.
Shoulder. Brachial.
Brachial.
Lumbar.
And sacral. Sacral. Your sacrum. It's coccyx. Okay, I know something else that we should do. This is kind of redundant because we have hit this partially already, but
Lumbar.
5 components of any nerve reflex. 5 components. Activation of the sensory receptor by a stimulus. Then it goes to the.
No, it goes.
How does it get there?
It goes through
Sensory neurons. We call that activation of sensory neuron. And then it goes to the control center for processing, integration in the control center. And it comes to a conclusion about how to respond. It sends out a really, really fast motor command on a motor neuron, whose target is going to be the effector. So we have a response by a peripheral effector. Okay, we had, what is the simplest, fastest kind of reflex? Monosynaptic reflex. And our classic example of a monosynaptic reflex is the
Patellar.
Yeah, we call that the stretch reflex, when you smacked on that patellar ligament. And then we had polysynaptic reflexes, and they always involved what? EPSPs and IPSPs.
Excitatory potentials and inhibitory. That's right.
And they can either happen on the same side of the body or on opposite sides of the body. If it happens on the same side, it is called ipsilateral. And if it involves both sides of the body, it's called contralateral. What is our classic example of a polysynaptic ipsilateral reflex? Withdrawal reflex. And so with the withdrawal reflex, if I touch a hot pan, what kind of a nerve impulse am I going to send to my biceps brachii? Excitatory. And then I'm going to have to send what kind to my triceps to get it to relax so it doesn't get injured? Inhibitory. What is our classic example of a polysynaptic contralateral reflex?
The tack one. Cross
extensor reflex. So if I step on a piece of glass with my left foot, I'm going to hop over to my right foot. What kind of commands did I have to send to this leg? So what kind of command did I send to my hammies?
Inhibitory.
I had to flex, right? So excitatory, because I had to use my hamstrings to flex at the knee. And then what did I have to tell my quads to do? Relax. So that's inhibitory. What am I telling quads on this side to do? Excitatory, because they got to hold my body up. What am I sending to these? Hammies. That's your inhibitory. You guys getting that now?
Sure.
It's like walk through it a body part at a time. If you have to get up, do it. I'll know exactly what y'all are doing during the exam. And why do we have reflexes?
To save us.
They are fat and fast, and they're usually fat. Ugh. And they usually are done to help keep us safe. All right. Oh, yes.
Ew.
Spinal cord. Oh God, I can't draw this. Let's go.
Please draw all 31 fingers.
Yeah, I cannot draw that. I am just not good enough. Okay, so let's do it this way. So, what part of the spinal cord carries motor commands?
The anterior.
Anterior root, which means that your sensory neurons is going to be on which side?
Posterior root ganglion.
Yeah, and you're going to remember that by the ganglia, because what's in that posterior root ganglia?
Sensory.
The cell bodies of sensory neurons. So that's how you're going to remember it. How many paraspinal nerves do we have?
31.
31. And cranial?
12.
12.
Oh, to take a family vacation. Go Vegas after hours.
You guys learned a different one.
That's
Yep.
what we did too.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
What were our different categories of receptors based upon what caused them to fire off? Tactile receptors would fall into what category? Mechanoreceptors. Oxygen sensors would fall into
Chemo.
chemoreceptors. Those that help me know where all my body parts are at in space and time are categorized as P-word, proprioceptors. Those that help me with, okay, what's another category?
Temperature.
Temperature are called thermoreceptors. Let's see. And pain. Nociceptors.
And photo. Did we say that one?
Yeah, photoreceptors, that would be another category. Yep. Okay, so we got that. We talked about that already. What is a receptor field?
How many
Yeah.
integrated
Yeah, like your fingers and like.
versus your thighs?
So you got the right idea here. So a receptor field is one neuron and the amount of skin that it innervates. So that's your
Innervates, not
receptor field.
integrates.
If I had this neuron and it only innervated that much skin, then these would be smaller receptor fields, these would be larger receptor fields. Where do you have larger
makes more
receptor
sense.
fids on your body?
Your thighs.
Forearm and thighs. And where do you have smaller receptor fields?
Fingertips,
Here.
toes.
Fingertips, lips, toes,
Tongue.
and my clitoris.
Sexual genitalia.
Just saying. My clitoris is very sensitive. All right. What is a dermatome?
What?
I don't remember.
It's the body where specific things innervate.
So remember that map of the body?
Oh.
And it tells you exactly which spinal nerves innervate what parts of the body. And then referred pain is caused because?
Because it's in control of multiple areas.
Yeah. So you have visceral sensory information traveling on the same neurons as somatic sensory information. Your brain gets confused about that sometimes.
Just like with car
We did
sickness.
reflex arc, monosynaptic, patellar, withdrawal, contralateral, and okay. So if I couldn't sense my bladder when it was full and I started to wet myself, that would be an example of what kind of a disorder?
A lower
A lower
neuron.
current.
So that's just a sensory, these are neuropathies, and that would just be a sensory neuron disorder. Now, if I could not get my muscles to contract because the neuron was not working correctly, then I would call that a
Lower
lower motor neuron
neuron.
disorder. And if I did damage to my spinal cord or brain, which was making it disallow from contracting those muscles, then I would call it an
upper
upper
motor
motor neuron disorder. And I would test that using what test?
The
That's,
the
I know.
Babinski test.
Babinski.
And as I stroke the bottom of the foot, what would be a normal response?
If it goes back.
Forward.
Oh, forward.
Plantar flexion. An abnormal would be
Dorsal.
dorsiflexion. This only works after the age of 1 to 2 years old. Because infants do not have a fully formed spinal cord yet, so it does not work on infants, it only works on older children and adults. And that's it. We just reviewed everything tonight.